Kiwi Ears, that is another brand which has been growing quite rapidly for the last few years. And finally, I have the opportunity to try and review some of the Kiwi Ears IEM. So what I have with me in my hand today is this Kiwi Ears Dolce, all right? And this Kiwi Ears Quartet, and also this Kiwi Ears Forteza, the latest one among all of the three. Okay, and before I proceed any further, I would like to say my thanks, huge thanks to Linsoul Audio, which is here based in the internet. You can browse directly to the shop here. And to my knowledge, if you want to get Kiwi Ears IEM especially, they are one of the major distributor and reseller for this Kiwi Ears IEM. Okay, so now let's just proceed and have a look at some of the details, price and configuration for this 3 IEM. So let's start with this Dolce here. Okay, so this is the IEM itself in my hand right now, and this is just apparently priced at 25 US dollar. Obviously, this is a budget offering from Kiwi Ears, probably one of the most affordable IEM in the selection. They have a few. And the construction itself is pretty much no-nonsense hard resin here. Single DD configuration, 10mm dynamic driver inside, designated as LPD, with the lowest impedance rating among them all at around 16 ohm, and sensitivity fairly sensitive at 102 dB. So pretty much a very simple affair of this stock OFC cable, detachable with this 3.5mm single-ended. And this the most premium of all three is this Quartet here, which is priced at 109 US dollar. It is a hybrid. What's inside the driver itself? This is the IEM itself here. Okay, lovely looking, made of hard resin as well. And what you're gonna find inside is a configuration of hybrid 2 dynamic driver and 2 balanced armature, and rated at 32 ohm with even higher sensitivity at 110 dB. So it also comes with this 3.5mm single-ended termination, and I believe this is SPC cable. The thing that's special about this Quartet is that it also comes with these deep switches at the back here, 2 of them, which will allow you to do 4 settings of sound configuration, which I will talk about a bit after this. Okay, and then finally we have the latest one in the family, which is also a hybrid, Forteza. And unlike the Quartet, this is priced pretty much almost half at 59 US dollar. Also constructed of hard resin, as you can see here, almost transparent, lovely looking as well. And the diaphragm itself, the configuration of the driver is pretty much a 2DD, but with just one balanced armature. And the impedance rating is pretty much similar at 32 ohm, and sensitivity almost similar to Dolce at 103 dB. Let's have a look at sound and performance for all three of these Kiwi Ears. So I will start with this Dolce here, which is priced at 25 US dollar, the budget among all three of them. As you would notice there, on the power aspect, this Dolce is very easy to drive. Rated at 16 ohm, as I mentioned earlier, with sensitivity at 103 dB. This is definitely very easy to drive. I can just simply attach it to my phone here, which is Sony Xperia Mark 1, okay, under one VRMS source. I was able to get the sort of sound which I would consider as fun and engaging, okay. And the tuning for this is pretty much a U-curve Harman. So the reason that I'm saying it's U-curve Harman is that there's a prominent suppression of mid bass and focus more on sub bass, and a bit of, let's say, not to say a bit, there's some suppression in the mid-range itself. So when it comes to the tone timbre balance itself, this is definitely something which I would consider as being colored, warm sounding and colored. And the resolution itself, when we talk about being how detailed this is less analytical compared to the other three. So definitely I would even say that this Dolce is intended to be something which you just simply grab, attach to your phone on the go, and then just simply have fun with your music. Nothing too analytical or anything like that, okay? So let's talk about the energy itself. How does it present the sound? Okay, as noted there, it is mildly euphonic. So what does it mean? as noted earlier, I did mention that this Dolce is fun sounding. So that's pretty much how fun sounding is all about. Vibrant, engaging, and even immersive, especially if you are listening to electronic music or even, let's say, pop music, but not so much suitable for certain type of music like classical or even technical jazz. Okay, so let's talk about the frequency range itself, starting with the treble. So as noted there, it is roll off. Okay, the tuning for this Dolce is something which I would consider as being safe tune. You will not get any kind of treble fatigue from this Dolce because the way it present the treble is, like I noted there, roll off, which means that the decay itself seems to fall short. Okay, there is enough amount of sparkle and energy to it, but do not expect any kind of treble head to be happy with the sort of treble performance from this, because it is meant for people who prefer warm sounding upper frequency. Okay, and when we talk about the mid-range itself, again, as noted earlier, in general, this is pretty much something which I would say that as being colored. So the mid-range itself is definitely warm and colored sounding. So why I am saying it's warm and colored? For example, when listening to certain female vocal like Diana Krall or even Alison Krauss, I feel that the texture and the definition and the tone of the vocal sounded like warm. Okay, there's an added coloration to the tone itself, to the point that it is not as transparent as how I used to listen to it, to more transparent IEM. Okay, so and this is perhaps the very reason why you would want to have this Dolce. Among all three of them, I can safely say that if you are bass head, definitely you would want to have this. This Dolce have a huge amount of bass, especially if you love Harman type of bass presentation. So Harman type bass presentation is definitely focused a lot more on sub bass, not so much on mid bass. So what I'm trying to say is that it is suitable, especially for electronic music, or even, let's say, anything with synthesizers or even like percussion, but not so much for metal music where mid bass is required. Okay, and for the quality of the bass itself, I would say that it's fairly okay, kind of a bit loose, not so fast or not so, let's say, tactile like the other two, but I will touch a bit more on that after this. Okay, and when it comes to soundstage, pretty much normal as per expected from a single DD, and it relates also to the spatial projection. This is traditional stereo, so it means that Dolce, despite being traditional studio, it is not suitable for gaming. Okay, and let's talk about the more expensive one, which is this Quartet here. Okay, this one. All right, so to review this Quartet, okay, it must be noted that there's a tuning dip switches here, which you can tune using a metal pick here like this, which is similar to your SIM ejector, all right, at which you can tune up to 4 settings. Okay, so after playing around with the settings, right, up, down, on, off, and 4 of them, I must say that I have found that I prefer the sound to be at number 1 switch off and number 2 at switch on. So my ears is telling me is that there's a bit of balance of sound from that setting, whereas what you can do is that you just need to play with the setting itself to figure out which one that you like. Okay, so let's talk about the power itself. Again, as noted, pretty much similar to Dolce, this is very easy to drive still, even though it is rated at 32 ohm, because the sensitivity is in fact higher at 110 dB, higher than Dolce and Forteza. So the impedance is high, but the impedance is high, but the sensitivity is also high. Okay, and when it comes to the tuning itself, this is yet another very popular U-curve Harman tuning. Okay, so when I say U-curve Harman tuning, pretty much similar to what I have already noted for Dolce earlier on. There's a bit of suppression of mid-range all the way to mid-bass, and then a lot more focus on sub-bass. Okay, so when it comes to tone and timbre, again, pretty much I would say that this is slightly colored, okay, but at least it is near organic and natural sounding. It does not sound metallic at all, so that is a huge plus already, regardless of which setting that I set for these switches here. And in a simplest term, I would even say that, if I have to put it into certain category, I would just simply say that this Quartet can be considered as near warm sounding IEM. Okay, so let's talk about the resolution itself. How does it resolve the details? So the good thing about this Quartet is that it is transparent, clean, and analytical, fairly analytical. So if you have a need, all right, and you are playing high resolution audio, you can be rest assured that Quartet would be able to live up to the expectation. Okay, so when it comes to the energy itself, again, pretty much similar to the rest. It is energetic, but not as euphonic sounding as this Dolce here. So, which means that while being analytical, detailed and clean sounding, it is also energetic and fun sounding at the same time. So it is fairly musical. And let's talk about the frequency range itself, the treble. As noted there, this Quartet offer crisp and sparkly decays, good extension. So among the three of them, I would say that perhaps Quartet is the one with the most extension. Okay, it extend quite a fair good of amount of into the upper frequency. All right, I was able to hear the sort of energy and sparkle which I would consider as a sign of very good handling of micro detail in the upper frequency. So the good thing is that regardless of which tuning switches that I set, and in fact, I would even say that some of the tuning switches would even emphasize a bit more on the upper frequency, but it will never be offensive or anything like that. So to a point that even treble head would probably be happy with the sort of treble performance from this Quartet. Okay, so now let's talk about the mid-range itself. It is neutral, just a slight hint of warm. Okay, especially when it comes to female and male vocal, which is baritone type. So when it comes to certain type of vocal like soprano, which is higher pitch, it is definitely neutral. And the instrument, the way that I'm hearing it, the attack and the decay of the instrument sounded correct to my ears. It sound accurate, in fact. Okay, so that's pretty much on the mids. Let's talk about the lower frequency. Again, because of the Harman sort of tuning, this is sub-bass focus. Okay, it is bassy enough to project a smile on for people who love big bass, for bass head, but not as bassy as this Dolce, okay? But it is definitely still very bassy if I were to look from neutral standpoint. So what I'm trying to say is that, despite the, somewhat neutral approach towards the mid-range and a bit of neutrality on the upper frequency, the lower frequency of this Quartet is definitely the one that's most prominent. You can't miss it, okay? Especially if you listen to bassy music, even jazz, dianachro music. The first thing that I heard was the lower frequency energy when it comes to, let's say, presenting some of the sub bass segment, the decay stage. It is just very prominent. So having said that, because it is being Harman tuned, it also seems to be a bit weak with the mid bass itself. So for example, if you listen to rock and metal music, then it is becoming apparent, at least to my ear, hearing that the attack of the mid bass is, despite being solid, it is not punchy enough for certain type of metal music. So now let's talk about the soundstage itself. So perhaps this is the only con which I would say when it comes to this Quartet, despite being 4DD and I mean 4 driver hybrid, the soundstage somewhat appears slightly narrow, at least to my ear, using this Sony Xperia 1, but it does get improved with the width and expand itself if you subject it to be a bit more of power. For example, when I attach it to this very wide and open sounding Ibasso DC04 Pro or even FIO BTR15, then the soundstage gets improved. But if you attach it to something which is relatively weak, there's a chance that the soundstage would sound slightly narrow. Okay, but the good thing is that when it comes to being holographic, spatial staging for this Quartet, it is definitely suitable for gaming and binaural music. Now let's have a look at this Forteza, and it is priced cheaper than Quartet. You would notice there, perhaps because it has one less balanced amateur driver inside. But to be frank with you, comparing between these two, they present a similar sort of sound presentation. Both of them Harman, but less of a U-curve Harman on this Forteza. I would just simply openly say that, among all three of them, this is perhaps the one that I like the most, okay? The reason is why? Because it is steel colored, near organic sort of tone and timbre, okay? But the way it handles the overall sound frequency is much more well balanced as compared to the other two. And let's have a look why I am saying like that. So let's talk about the resolution itself. Again, as noted, pretty much similar to Quartet, which is being transparent, clean, and analytical. It is also energetic, and it is pretty much identical to Quartet in many ways, but the differences would appear when we talk about mid-range presentation. Okay, so this is definitely the most neutral and transparent among all three of them. Okay, I do not hear any kind of coloration at all, regardless of what vocal type, what vocal presentation, male or female, and the instrument, especially even when playing classical music, the violin itself, it sounded accurate to my ears. Okay, so now let's talk about the lower frequency. And this is yet another area which I think this Forteza did really well. Okay, there's a bit more of balance between sub bass and mid bass as opposed to the other two, which is Dolce and Quartet, because the way it present, despite still being Harman tune, okay, the suppression of the mid bass is not as strong as how it was observed on Dolce and Quartet. So I would even say that, between the three of them, if I were to listen to metal music, rock music, I definitely would prefer to use this Forteza over the other two. Okay, soundstage is pretty much normal. Okay, not as narrow as observed when I use this Quartet, but it also does scale really well when you attach to already wide sounding source. Okay, and it is also holographic, which means that this is also suitable for gaming and even binaural music. When I sit back and reflect on the sound presentation of all three IEM here, okay, this Dolce, Quartet, and even Forteza, one thing is at least prominent to me, the way I look at it. I have only tested 3 Kiwi Ears IEM so far, but one thing I can say is that, if you are into Harman type of sound tuning, Kiwi Ears is one of them that I would highly recommend because they can actually tune a different sort of sound appreciation within the Harman tuning itself to a point that, if you love a bit more of bassy presentation and a lot more bassy presentation, Dolce is the one to use on the go. No hassle, just simply grab it, use it attached to your phone, and forget about everything else. Okay, but when you need a bit more of analytical approach, Quartet definitely has it, or even Forteza. And if you need a bit more of balance, less of Harman sort of approach, Forteza is the one that I would choose.